Well, to start with, 9/11 was not like Pearl Harbor. We didn't immediately realize we were under attack. All we heard was that a airplane had hit one of the World Trade Center towers, and we thought of it like World War II, where a bomber hit the Empire State Building. Then, when the second tower was hit by another plane, we realized this is a different thing. Um, one I heard a crash at some distance, but didn't understand it until a cloud of papers, 8.5 by 11 papers, came going down Wall Street, all the way down street into the East River. It was an extraordinary sight. And then we kind of became aware of what had really happened. Um, so we had to figure out, you know, how to respond to it. It wasn't something that we knew about from before. So I thought about the people in the building at Wall Street, and on my floor, I was able to send everybody home except the computer operators because they're the only ones who operate the computer. And I stayed there to basically be everything else. And that kind of worked. Um, so we were at least up. Our customers were still being supported. Um, no one in our area was being hurt, and there was no panic. People did not panic during 9/11 at Wall Street. So we had to get organized and understand how we could keep our customers serviced with minimum staff. And one thing that kind of amazed me as we dug in was that the computer operators who ran 12-hour shifts were able to go on shift, do their work, go home. Next shift came in. And even though there was a police blockade of Canal Street, so no one was supposed to be able to get to Lower Manhattan, I did not ask how they did it. Um, the fact that we were running so smoothly did not, um, the senior management wasn't quite so sure about it. So someone said, well, you're going to run out of power for your emergency generators. Okay, the fuel oil. Well, guess what? I told them I was looking down from my window on the 10th floor, and there was a tank truck refilling our fuel oil for the generators right on the street. I was wondering how they got through the tunnel with all the chaos. I learned later that there was an FBI agent riding shotgun in the each tank truck, and so that's the way it was allowed through the tunnel. Um, the next really weird thing was a senior vice president in New Jersey was creating his own recovery plan. And I got the message to him that we had someone named Charlie, and she had created a perfectly good plan, which we practiced twice a year. And in fact, if the backup plan didn't work, you came in 2 weeks later again, and you did until you did it right. So I said, basically, let Charlie do her job, and he backed off and did, and we didn't really make big mistakes. Unlike another big New York bank, which had their backup site across the street from their primary site, both of them were in the war zone. So all the other banks had to run their work every night because you couldn't close the books without the input from one of the bigger banks. So we accommodated it. We found a way of meeting our goal, which is to service our customers despite this. And we didn't even have to leave the Wall Street data center, even though we had backup, because all of the provisions worked. Now, when it was over, which was depending on how you measure it, either a week or 2 weeks, it was worth looking at lessons learned. I would hope that during any major event we do lessons learned. Here's a few. First of all, one of the terrorists went to a flight school in Minnesota and asked to learn how to fly a major airliner. And some people do that just as an ego trip. So the instructor helped him, but he noticed that the student was totally uninterested in learning how to land the plane. So, not being a fool, he contacted the local FBI office, and they tried to get permission from Washington to search the phones and basically do a full search to figure out what was going on here. Unfortunately, the FBI people in Washington were very territorial and couldn't believe that someone in Minnesota had anything important, so that request for a search warrant went nowhere. Um, another another thing that affected survival. The plan in the World Trade Center was not for people to go all the way down the stairs to the bottom, but to go to a sky lobby, it was called, so that they could phase the descent, because they didn't think the stairs would hold everybody at once. Um, I don't think many people paid attention, and because obviously the people that stayed in the sky lobby would have died. The last thing is, if you have wondered why it is that the bomber did not do any harm to the Empire State Building, but both airplanes took down the World Trade Center towers, the answer is in the construction. Skyscrapers in New York have steel beams, rising beams, and then beams running across to support each floor. It's a rigid structure. Basically, the bomber just bounced off of it. Um, in the case of the World Trade Center, they had that in the plans, but they ran out of money, so they said, "Well, we'll just build the building differently." So when the World Trade Center, each floor rested on the floor below it. It's like sitting on top of the floor below it, and that sat on the floor below it. Once things started to collapse, it had to go all the way down. So that was the first and last time they used that form of construction on a skyscraper. Not that anybody can be faulted, because nobody really understood what the threat was, but there were things that could have stopped the problem.